Let's look at adenocarcinoma in respiratory specimens. We'll start with sputum. And the classic appearance in sputum is balls of cells that are hyperchromatic. This is a classic example here. You can see the grouping has three-dimensionality to it. You can focus up and down. And on the outside, the nuclei are arranged peripherally. There's like a community border, and I think I can see vacuolation in that group. Just another group here, and you can see again it has that rounded sort of scalloped edge to the group. You can see eccentric nuclei in it. You can see vacuoles, I think, that I'm bringing into focus now, and probably little nucleoli in all of the cells as well. So this is that classic glandular grouping. This case also has a lot of single cells, and you can see they have that classic targetoid vacuole. This one has like a signet ring appearance to it with the nucleus pushed to one side by the large vacuole. And notice they look a bit histiocytic. So that can be a problem. Here's another case. You can see a group here amongst a whole lot of macrophages. But the group looks different. They have larger nuclei that are hyperchromatic, slightly anyway. So in well-differentiated adenocarcinomas, telling them apart from macrophages, which are all around the outside here, can be quite difficult. And you really need to notice nuclear enlargement, nuclear atypia, and cohesion of the cells, because macrophages shouldn't be cohesive. These guys have all got that prominent single central nucleolus. That's a feature of adenocarcinoma, and they all have eccentric nuclei as well. This is just another group. You can see there's mainly debris and macrophages here, and then a few groups that are looking different, like this one here. It seems to be more cohesive, nuclei definitely larger, and those same features again, so prominent nucleoli, eccentric nuclei. It's almost like an acinar arrangement, or a couple of them there around a sort of luminal area. Finally, another one, you can see the nuclei are really quite enlarged over the macrophages in the background, but very fine chromatin. In washings and brushings, can be variable. This is a brushing specimen that's terribly bloody and air dried, and preservation's poor. They're normal bronchial epithelial cells, so you can see these nuclei are much larger, prominent nucleoli, and again eccentrically placed nuclei. The washings should usually show much better morphology. You can see here an acinar arrangement of the cells, down here a huge nucleus. But there are bronch cells all over the place here too, so the tumour cells are kind of mixed up with that. We have more coarse chromatin here, granular cytoplasm, acinar arrangement there, and then you can see the columnar shapes in these cells as well. So not a huge amount of nuclear enlargement here, but very coarse, irregular chromatin. This is perhaps an easier group. It's less differentiated. So we've got here clusters of obvious carcinoma. We can tell that it is very hyperchromatic and abnormal, and there I've got like a crowded sheet of cells, and here you can see it's that very disorganized arrangement of adenocarcinoma. The cells are basically in like a crowded sheet. They have fairly granular vacuolated cytoplasm. Nucleoli aren't as prominent in this one, but there's obvious abnormal chromatin. And again, that sort of crowded sheet. Quite a lot of variation in size and shape. In FNA you have better preservation, so you'll have better nuclear detail usually. This is the air-dried Giemsa stain, and can't see a lot of detail, but it's certainly carcinoma. I can see enough to see nuclear a tibia at this level, and it's quite cohesive, so we know it's either adeno or squamous probably. That doesn't tell us a lot, but maybe eccentric nuclei in some of those cells off the edge, and maybe evacuation too. This is the pap stain, and again it looks like basically a disorganized sheet of cells. The cytoplasm is not looking squamoid really, it's quite granular and delicate. Nucleoli have a fairly fine to coarse chromatin, I suppose. And there's maybe little vacuoles around the place too, like that targetoid vacuole there, but mainly it's quite fine vacuolation that gives a sort of granular look. This is another example. We've got large dark nuclei in the Giemsa and some groupings like this, which have a bit of a glandular look to them on low power, and that definitely has more of a glandular look to it. This is the pap stain fixed slide, and this is a much better, sort of a well differentiated adenocarcinoma. There's a lot less variation in size and shape amongst it, but notice how they're disorganized, so it's like a drunken honeycomb, and extremely hyperchromatic nuclei. So dark it's hard to see the nucleoli in them, but these are definitely not normal cells, and I'm also looking for the fact there's definitely no cilia here, because that would rule against malignancy. This is just to remind me that, of course, metastatic adenocarcinoma is a common finding in the lung, and this is a renal cell carcinoma, clear cell carcinoma, metastatic to lung, and separating these from primary really on a cytologic basis requires immunohistochemistry. Just in summary, the benign mimics that can occur include reactive cases, reactive glandular cells, so looking for the presence or absence of cilia is very important in those cases. The other thing I mentioned, particularly in sputum with well-differentiated adenocarcinomas, is that they can look very macrophage-like. They have fine chromatin that's not obviously on low power abnormal, so very important to look for cohesion of the cells to make sure they're not macrophages, nuclear enlargement and vacuolation. The other thing I haven't covered in a lot of detail is that sometimes you can get reactive pneumocytes, and they can be a cause of